Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about delta neutral strategies and how we can use Vault on a protocol like Vectus in order to create delta neutral positions and earn cash flow and yield month over month. So the inspiration for this video really comes from some of the volatility that we've been having in the markets over the past few weeks. And of course, by creating delta neutral positions, we can essentially remove our exposure to the directional movements of the market and isolate yield. In this case, the example we're going to be looking at is isolating the yield coming from the JLP token for the Jupiter liquidity provider pool over on the Jupiter exchange. So the protocol we're going to be looking at today is called Vectus, but essentially what we're doing is we are looking at this JLP Navigator Vault, and I'm going to show you an example I've been running for the past 6-7 weeks. And we're going to describe what's happening here under the hood in terms of how the delta neutral position is being created with the JLP Navigator Vault. And we're going to show you the results of running an experiment over the past 6 to 7 weeks and how you can do the exact same thing. So a couple of prerequisites here very quickly. Jupiter is one of the leading DEX aggregators on the Solana blockchain, and Jupiter also offers perpetual trading. So this means that traders over on Jupiter can long and short assets like Solana, Ethereum, and Bitcoin with leverage, okay? And they also have the JLP token, which acts as the counterparty risk token here, associated with all of the counterparty risk for those people who are borrowing in order to leverage up those perpetual trades with Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum. And JLP itself is a yield-bearing asset. You can see currently it's generating about 23.5% APY. This number does fluctuate between 20 and 70%. I've seen it as high as 70 or 80% sometimes. And the vault that we're going to look at on Vectus is essentially isolating this yield with the delta neutral strategy that we will walk through. But this APY is coming from the opening and closing fees along with the borrowing fees that the perpetual traders are paying over for creating those perpetual trades against Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum. So hopefully that's making sense so far. The final thing to note is that the JLP token itself is made up of Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, USDC, and USDT as the assets underpinning the price itself. And you can see the weightage here for each of those assets that underpin the JLP token being heavily skewed towards Solana at 47%, 10% Ethereum, 11% wrap Bitcoin, 28% USDC, and about 4% USDT. Okay, so again, what we're trying to do here is generate yield. We're isolating this yield with the vault we're about to look at so that we can continue to earn cash flow, but without giving ourselves the ability to incur impermanent loss because the position is inherently delta neutral. So let's jump back over to Vectus here. Again, Vectus, as a very quick overview, is a relatively new protocol in the DeFi space. Obviously, given the fact that we're using it for the JLP token, we must note that Vectus is a Solana-based protocol. You can see that the TVL has been growing on Vectus. It's grown from about 6 million when it launched back at the end of last year, so about 6 million in December, to over 27, 28 million in terms of TVL where it is at today. Okay, so what's happening with this particular vault? Well, this thread on X breaks it down very succinctly, and when we're entering this vault, the JLP Navigator Vault over on Vectus, what the vault is doing on our behalf is it's purchasing JLP. It is then depositing that JLP into Drift Protocol, which is another lending and borrowing protocol on Solana. It's then borrowing USDC stablecoin against that JLP, which is being used as collateral, and it's then looping that USDC back in to purchase more JLP and lever up our exposure to the asset JLP, which also levers up our exposure to increase the leverage for this APY. Okay. At the same time that it's doing all of that, it's also shorting Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum, because if you recall, Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum are the three volatile assets underpinning the JLP token. So by shorting Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum at the same time as levering up exposure to JLP, it's creating a delta neutral position and isolating the yield that's being generated from JLP itself. Okay, so that's the first part of the equation here. But the second thing that the Vault is doing on an ongoing basis is it is adjusting and rebasing the delta neutral position based on several variables. So, of course, if the JLP yield pushes higher, the Vault moves towards increasing leverage. So remember, I mentioned this APY is not fixed. It is variable. It can increase and decrease. And what we're being told here essentially with the Vault smart contract is if the JLP yield pushes higher, the Vault will increase leverage in order to capture more of that yield. Of course, if the USDC borrowing cost pushes higher, the Vault will obviously decrease leverage. There's no point in increasing and maintaining high leverage if the cost to borrow the USDC is prohibitively expensive. And similarly, for the short positions against Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum, depending on the perp funding rate, the Vault will also increase or decrease leverage depending on if that perp funding rate is positive or negative. So this element of the Vault is what makes it super seamless and super efficient for us to use a solution like this in order to maintain a delta neutral position, because realistically speaking, yes, you can reverse engineer this and do it all manually yourself, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a huge amount of attention for you to continuously monitor the JLP yield, to monitor those USDC borrowing rates and the perp funding rates, and make adjustments and keep rebasing the delta neutral position manually. It would require a huge amount of effort. Okay, so the benefit or the beauty of the Vault is it's doing all of that with the smart contract on our behalf. And I want to show you the net result of an experiment I've been running for the past 6 or 7 weeks. As you can see, I've generated about 4% over the course of about 6 weeks. Now, this number has been as high as 5%. It does fluctuate, but the net of the scenario here running this particular Vault with Vectus is the fact that it's generating about 2.75 to 3% per month, which doesn't sound amazing compared to some other pool opportunities that we're in when we're possibly earning 10, 11, 12% per month. But with this option, you have to remember you do not have the risk of impermanent loss because the underlying position is inherently delta neutral. Okay, so generating 2.5 to 3% per month is really not all that bad when you don't have that risk of impermanent loss and losing your capital. So again, with this particular Vault, you deploy into it with USDC, and everything else from that moment onwards is being automated by the Vault itself. All the steps that we just looked at, from purchasing the JLP token, deploying it into Drift, setting up the lend borrow, and creating the short positions against Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum, that is all completely automated by the Vault. All you have to do is deploy your capital stablecoin into the Vault itself, and it takes care of all the rest and simply generates your total earnings and gives you an ROI based on time in the pool and based on what you've generated since you entered your capital. The final thing I will mention here before wrapping up this video is the fact that you can withdraw your capital at any time. The only caveat is that there is a 1-day redemption period. So once you opt to actually remove your capital, so I think my capital is in Vault E over here. If I choose the maximum amount in order to withdraw, I do have to wait 24 hours as a redemption period in order to see the funds actually hit my wallet. But that's not a bad option compared to many other protocols and staking protocols, which will often have 1 week, 2 week, or even 1 month cooldown periods for when you want to withdraw your capital. So you can take it out within 24 hours if you needed to. Again, we need to see what's going to happen here over the course of the bull market and as we move into a bear market to understand how well this will perform as we move through different phases of the market cycle. But what I can tell you is that it's generating about 2.75 to 3% on a monthly basis right now based on this experiment. And if you're someone who's not keen on incurring a lot of impermanent loss, using delta neutral vaults just like this on Vectus could be a good solution for you to generate consistent cash flow and earn good yield. So I hope that video was helpful, guys. We will be doing more videos and content on delta neutral strategies. Drop me a comment below. If there's any questions, drop them below the video, and we'll catch you in the next one.